The Dodgers are my team. Well, guess what? You're on my team, and we're the Dodgers.
Really?
Yep.
So, grit, this year in 2021, we want to talk about the joy of sport. 2020 was not a good year for sport. It was closed off, and then it came back, and every championship seemed like it was going to have an asterisk to it. But we want to just dig in the joy of sport. And so we have Joel Parker with us. Joel is like all over the place as an athlete. He is a raconteur when it comes to talking about sport, and he is the quintessential spectator. So Joel, I want to ask you, which one of your great sport memories? Mary Lou Retton said that trophies gather dust, but memories are forever. What's a great sport memory?
Well, first I want to address the asterisks next to the World Championships because as you'll see, I'm wearing my 2020 Dodgers World Championship t-shirt, and I think they earned it. I really do. But yeah, as far as memories go, I mean, there were so many, like great victories, horrible losses. And, you know, the best memory for me was a year and a half ago, coaching my son's Little League baseball team here in Carlsbad to the championship. And like, we went into the losers bracket and we just had this miraculous, like Disney story, you know, victory run all the way through the championship. And we beat the team that was waiting for us. And they had all the stacked players, but we just had this community of like, I won't say misfits, but just unlikely friends all bonded together through baseball, who just believed in one another, and we won it all. And it was better than being on the field. Of just seeing my son playing a position and just getting to coach these little kids that's probably my best sports memory of all time.
There's so many great moments like that happen in sport. Like, so what did sport mean to you growing up? How did it fill your childhood?
Yeah, I grew up a child of the 80s. So I just thought in fifth grade, actually, 1988, I was kind of becoming aware of how the world worked. But in my small understanding, I thought every movie was going to have Tom Cruise flying an F-14. I thought the Dodgers were just going to win every year, as they did, with Kirk Gibson hitting that home run off of, a hurt leg and pumping his fist. And the Lakers won it that year too. I just thought that's how the world was. It was wonderful and it was great. And then it turned out not to be, at least for the Dodgers, but I was just into every sport. Like, I played basketball, I played football, I played soccer, I played tennis. I was really, really into tennis randomly. And I didn't like just devoting everything to one sport. I wanted it all. And I loved what every sport had to offer. And so, yeah, that was kind of my deal. I played everything.
Well, so for us Padre fans, the agony of defeat, that was my story growing up, was we lost a great, maybe next year. But tell me about, so you took Liam, your son, up to LA for the Lakers celebration and the Dodgers celebration. What did that mean as father and son? What was that like to be in that crowd?
Well, a lot of people ask me, like, why are you a Dodgers fan? Like, a diehard Dodger fan. Like, I defended the Dodgers and still, like, and people want to know where that came from. Well, it came from my grandpa. He grew up in Brooklyn. And so he was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. And he was like anything for Brooklyn, they're just passionate about everything, whether it's pizza, jazz music, or the Dodgers. Like that was their life. And so that carried on. And so naturally, the earliest pictures of my kids are all in Dodgers gear. And Vince Scully is like their grandfather. He's just the voice in our living room all growing up. And so, yeah, when we finally knew that we were going to like clinch it, I knew we were going to win that game, and we hopped in the car and drove up. Actually, for the Lakers too, we were in LA for that too. But we went up on the Friday night that they lost, and we were ready there to celebrate at Staples, and it didn't happen. So we went back Sunday, and it did happen. And so just to be in the city for the team that you love and support, like it was pretty special. And the beautiful thing about that is Liam's the same age that I was in 5th grade when the Dodgers won. So it was really cool to get to see him celebrate with everybody in LA.
Yeah, that's really cool. So 5th grade, what kind of sports did you play, and how did it? Because to me, sports was this moment in life where everything else disappeared, and it was just you and your opponent, whether it was street ball, football, soccer, baseball. For me. Tell me about being a kid and playing the sports.
Yeah, I got really into tennis, and I played every sport, but like tennis, like my parents got me lessons, and then I kind of excelled at tennis, and to the point where, I was like early teens, I was working at a private tennis club, and I was helping give lessons, and I was traveling, playing tournaments, and it was serious, and we were training, and part of me really loved that, but I think the part that I loved most about it was just the aspect of team. I just wanted to be with the guys who were all kind of focused on one goal. I didn't really even like playing in matches. Like that wasn't why I played. Like that moment of like being on center court with everybody watching and the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. Like I just wanted to be on the bus with, and I loved what tennis created. I didn't necessarily love tennis in and of the sport of it, if that makes sense. And so, that's what led me to I want to play baseball too. I want to be on the baseball team, and I want to play on the football team. I want to like put pads on with everybody in the locker room. And I almost loved everything that comes along with the sport more than the sport itself. It gave me joy. It gave me great joy. And I love the community of what sports builds.
Yeah. So you in high school, you played soccer.
Yeah.
You were on varsity. Any other sports?
Yeah, I played football. I did summer league basketball because I couldn't play because it competed with snowboard season. I played tennis. Yeah, I think that's it.
So football and soccer, how was that? How was the team? How did you see joy in those teams?
The joy of playing football was, I think, just the environment football, just the Friday night lights, the stands, there being, 60, 70 guys on your squad was just special. And just, when you put pads and a helmet on and you feel like you're going to war, it feels the same. And you're not just playing some silly sport. Like you're going to go like kill the other team. And it just so happens to be the team from across your town, where soccer was more, I don't know, it was like finesse. It was more of like, there was less, no one watches soccer. It's like your parents.
Hold on.
Well, in Seattle, at least, it's pouring rain. No one wants to like.
The Sounders won the MLS championship.
This is the Amazon Seattle. I'm talking about Seattle back when it was grimy and dirty. Yeah, now it's all sophisticated and cool. But and it's just like I said, like each sport really had a different community, a different, not just skill set, but a whole environment. And that's what I think is thrilling and exciting about sport.
Yeah. I recently interviewed for the magazine Kevin O'Connell, who's the new offensive coordinator for the Rams. And so I was asking him about team, and he was saying how important it is to build team, particularly when the sport is also a business. And he goes, I'm successful if I get my guys back to having fun. Will do well if they're having fun. And so then I asked him, and he just remembered playing for La Costa Canyon. And he said there was nothing like those days, even though he went on to play for San Diego State and 49ers, I think. I'm forgetting. But tell me about snowboarding. What is the joy in snowboarding? It's so individual and beautiful.
That was a big shift in my life, going from team sports to an individual sport. And snowboarding, a lot of people say it's not a sport. You know, it's an action sport. So it's skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing. They're all they run in the same vein. But when I discovered snowboarding, it lured me in like nothing ever had. Just the challenge was, yes, it was athletic. Like, you had to be in shape. You had to be able to take hits. The hits were worse than football. So, you know, crashing was serious. In fact, it put me in the hospital more than once. And but I loved when I just loved the change of scenery. I loved that the crowds disappeared. It was just me, and it was just me in backcountry and learning how to like navigate and so it was weird that it was considered a sport, and it still is weird. I know it's a judge thing now, where, you know, Shaun White's going down, we call it the trick ditch or the half pipe, and guys are holding up scores at the end. But that's not why Shaun White got into snowboarding. It's not why I got into snowboarding. It was like just the idea of adventure. It was the idea of like just, you know, like when you're a little kid and you get your bike for the first time, and it was like it brought all that back. And you know, as it progressed, I realized I was missing kind of like the locker room aspect of sport, you know, like, because snowboarding doesn't have that. And so that became community. And again, what I love about snowboarding is like the drive up to the mountain, like being with my buddies in the Subaru, you know, driving through the snow an hour up to get to the sport. It would kind of replace the bus going to the Friday night game and the football game. So yeah, that's what really built snowboarding into my life, was the community. It's like we all had our own language. We all wore beanies, and we all rooted each other on. And it was a pretty special thing to discover, especially in the early 90s when snowboarding was so formative. No one knew what it was. And to get to grow with a movement, it would be like, you know, being around in the 1800s when they developed baseball, you know, or basketball with like a peach, you know, basket, like nailed up, you know, like it felt like that.
And you became a filmmaker. And so talk to me about the beauty of sport and how the beauty is a bridge to joy. Because I'm thinking, you know, just some of the great footage of snowboarding that I've seen, but also I saw the last game Sandy Koufax ever pitched, and that was a beautiful thing to behold. How do you think that the art of it works into the joy of sport?
Well, the art came from tragedy for me. Like, I got really hurt I was 18 years old. I was right on the verge of kind of trying to make snowboarding a job. And so I had a couple sponsors, and it was like I was excelling at it, and it felt wonderful. And then the tragedy took all that away, and I was trying to always find a way back in to be around the art of snowboarding. And snowboard movies have always been something it's a huge cultural thing for us, just like surf movies, you know, like, you know, who was it? Who's the surf filmmaker? Bruce Brown. So Bruce Brown every year would put out a film, and everybody would pack La Paloma Theater. And it's like this joyous occasion when you get to see the best surfers in the world surfing the best waves. Well, snowboarding just stole that. And so we started making snowboard videos, and we're filming one another jumping off cliffs and learning new tricks. And so that's naturally what I got into. When I couldn't snowboard at the level that was worthy of being in the films, I just became the filmer. And because I knew how to get to the backcountry places where guys were doing this stuff, and I knew what kind of tricks they would be doing, and I spoke the language, and so on and so forth. And to create art of something that I care so deeply about, I love the sport of snowboarding. I want everybody to experience what I've tasted. And the problem is, I can't take you to Patagonia and hike you into backcountry for 3 days, it would be far too dangerous. I can't take you to the places that I've been, but creating a film to allow you to experience just a taste of it brings so much joy to me. And again, it's just like watching, Sandy Koufax pitch that last game. It just, you weren't in the stadium, but you got to be a part of it just by seeing it. And that's the bond. The bond is no different from me driving up to the mountain with my 4 buddies in my Subaru to being in the theater, and the same joy can be had in both places. Like, you don't need to be in backcountry of Patagonia. You can experience the same joy in your living room watching it on DVD and or whatever. And I think that's a wonderful thing sport has to offer.
So tell me why then, you're sitting in your living room, why is The Sandlot the best baseball movie ever made?
Oh, well, geez, because everyone connects to it. You watch that movie and you're like, I knew that kid. Oh, that's who I identify. I was totally hit. And we all wanted to be Benny the Jet, and you all wanted to lace up your PF Flyers and so I think The Sandlot just did such a wonderful job capturing youth and just the joy of being part of a sport, part of a community, getting into trouble, having victories, having losses, and just the adventure of life. And I think that's what sport has to offer. It keeps us stuck together. So even though we grow out of 6th grade like we all do, we can always come back to either watching a baseball game or joining a softball league or, whatever it may be. And what a wonderful thing. As you get old, you just get lame. That's just, you turn into your parents, right? And none of us ever wanted to turn into our parents. And I think your options for community get smaller and smaller. You no longer are stuck going to school. You're no longer playing all these sports, and you no longer have all this free time. So your community becomes, I kind of looked at it as 2 ways. Like, it either become a bar. Half of my friends are hanging out at the bar all the time. I'm like, that just doesn't satisfy my adventure. There's not enough trouble to get into. There's not enough, on Monday morning when you go, hey, what'd you do Friday? Like, oh, we went to the bar. That's just lame. But if you got together and, and played sport, like, there was something that was going to come out of that. And I think, again, more than sports itself, it's the adventure of just bringing people together. When you can do that, whether it's school or sports or whatever it may be, craziness will ensue. And that craziness is what makes life so wonderful, Like, LA is a very diverse place. And, but the Dodgers, because of this silly little game, brought the whole world together. The worst year, everyone will mark 2020 as the worst year ever. I'll mark it as the greatest year ever. And I had a moment where, I risked getting COVID, but hugging strangers, like people you would have nothing in common, but because of this one little game with a ball and a bat and a couple bases, we're grown men are in tears, and it's just wonderful, like everybody should experience that.
So you didn't want to become your parents, but you became a parent.
Yes.
And you have your own Sandlot story.
Yes.
Tell us that story.
So, I was actually at the beach and just spending quiet time with God. And I just felt kind of convicted, like I wasn't spending enough time with my son. In this particular season of life, I was working on a film, I was really busy, and work was a priority in my life, and as it should be as a provider for my family. But it was taking precedence over everything. And I was missing that connection with my son. And I was like, I don't know where to create time. I don't know how to solve this. And so I was literally pulling in from the beach, and I looked over to my right. I drive into the left, and there's an empty field in Carlsbad. There's like no empty space anywhere in Carlsbad. And I just thought, I don't know, it was like this Kevin Costner moment. Like, if you build it, they will come. And I'm like, I know what we're going to do. So I told Liam, grab the shovels, grab the rakes. We're going to go build a baseball field. And so we jump the fence, and we're out there. We built a baseball field. And And sure enough, word got out, and every night we started playing wiffle ball baseball games on this field, and it was an incredible experience. In fact, Walt Nolan, he's pitched for the Cubs. He's walking out on the field because his son Jack played with my son in Little League, and so all the Little League kids started coming over and playing baseball. And Walt was walking out on the field, and to watch grown men just immediately become 12-year-olds is the best experience ever. And not only that, but Walt, he's like, Joel, you know what I used to do, right? And I'm like, yeah, I think you play baseball. He's like, I pitched for the Cubs. I've pitched in every major stadium. He goes, but this is the coolest field I've ever seen in my life. And so all summer long, Walt was like full-time pitcher. And so kids are coming up there and going, yeah, I just went yard off Walt Nolan. And it was an amazing season. In fact, we had this lady who hated us. Everybody else loved us. This one lady comes over, she goes, I've lived here 30 years. I've never seen anything like this. This is the best thing that's ever happened to our community. Well, this other lady, she'd call the cops every time. And the cops would come out and they're like, this is amazing. Well, as soon as I get off shift, I'm gonna come play with you guys. But finally it got to be too much, and the police they shut us down. So we even, our Sandlot stories is even like the Hollywood version. instead of a big dog, we just had a mean old lady who just hated baseball. So
every neighborhood has to have that Boo Radley.
She's just the worst.
Mrs. Dubois, who just negative and stuff. So Joel, you've had all these experiences as a parent, as a coach, as an athlete. How would you foster joy for an athlete, for a parent who's watching their kid on the field, for a coach who wants to bring that life alive for their players?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if there's like a set answer. If there was, we'd all be joyful people and humanity would just be amazing, wouldn't it? But for me as a coach, I'm always looking for that kid who's having a hard time. And there's always that one kid who just, he lacks discipline or whatever. And I always just go that's my guy. And I let him know that he's my guy. And I take him under my wing and I fight for him, and other coaches will be tough on him. And I just want him to know he has someone who cares for him. I remember when I was a kid and I had a coach do that for me, and it changed my life. The first coach that I had that really believed in me, maybe when I didn't even deserve it, to be believed in was just absolutely life-changing. And so I think we can effectively really change youth sports by reassuring that the kids know that we truly believe in them. And that's why we're there. We're not there to win, winning's wonderful. It's exciting. You're not always going to win, though. So if that's the point of sports, you've got one team, the champion, and everybody else is the Padres, and that's a miserable existence. Am I right, Wendy? So I think we really have to examine that as coaches. We're here to champion the kids, and really, each kid is different. You're going to have to figure out how to unlock that kid, but it's a wonderful experience when it happens. And I think as a parent, the same thing is your kids have to know and trust that you're exposing them to sports for the betterment of their holistic being, not just to be a best baseball player, a best tennis player, a best snowboarder. It's to experience life at its full, right? And learning how to lose is one of the most important things you can learn. Learning to fail as an adult, that's one of the best skill sets you can have as a human being. And so navigating those times, those drive homes after a really frustrating or embarrassing outing as an athlete is better than winning all the time. So, and I think for me too, just as, a 42-year-old dad who still gets to play baseball and still gets to snowboard and still gets to participate in all these things. I like being well-rounded. It's not for everybody. Some people like to specialize, but for me, I like, snowboarding. I'm a better snowboarder than I am baseball player, but I love getting out there and playing baseball with the kids and with the other parents. And I think just fighting to be involved is so important. And so stay involved, stay connected, stay in community, and that's what's going to keep you going. I'm wearing the shoes of my buddy's pro model skate shoes, Steve Caballero. He's in his 50s, and the guy still skates a half pipe like a teenager. And so, yeah, he's a legend. And somebody says it this way. They said, you don't quit skateboarding because you get old. You get old because you stop skateboarding. And so I just want to be the guy skateboarding in my driveway, playing ball with my son after school, and snowboarding on weekends. And that's what brings me great joy.
So Joel, for me, you know, as a softball player, running track in high school, the joy for me was always just putting my cleats on and anticipating the possibilities. What's your final story on the joy of sport?
Yeah, there's nothing better than like in snowboarding, just lacing up your boots and hearing the snap of the clicking your bindings. But someday, unfortunately, that wanes and it goes away. And I had a moment, actually I'm wearing my beanie, my US snowboard team beanie that I got from my buddy Tommy Shashin, who's the US snowboard team coach. And Tommy had an incredible year. He's an incredible career. He was an Olympian. He's Shaun White's coach. And he and I were up riding with our sons a couple years ago. And we got off the chairlift and we strapped in and we just ripped down the mountain, spraying one another, jumping off the sides. And we got to the bottom and we both stopped and we looked up and there were our sons, like 8, 9 years old, ripping down, doing the same exact thing us old guys are doing. And they're looking for pow stashes to slash and they're trying to jump and spin. And I remember Tommy looking over at me, he goes, "This is the best day of my life." And it wasn't an amazing day. It wasn't like you know, we weren't there to like, we snowboarded around the world. He'd been on the Olympic stage, but seeing our kids experience something that we love so much is what brings us back to the joy of just like lacing up your cleats, or like that first time of hearing your bindings, you know, like click, click, click. And it's passing your sport on. It's how do you give it away? And, you know, I just think that's what keeps me going at 42 years old. I'm not an athlete. I've never been outstanding at any one specific sport, but I think, you know, the community it builds and then getting to pass it along to others so that they might experience those wonderful things that we all got when we were kids is what keeps us young forever, you know? And I think it's attainable. And I think joy is real. And I think sport is right at the center of it.
Why are we talking about the joy of sport in this episode? Because when we find pure joy, we find God the Creator in back of it all. C.S. Lewis said of joy, especially in things like sports or dance, it is the very business of heaven. When we feel joy in a well-striven game or a perfectly executed play, it speaks to us with an almost heavenly voice. Sports gives us moments beyond time, moments of unpolluted clarity to sense what God has made us for. And it's not just the heights and joys, but even the depths and defeats where we can see more of ourselves and how we can rise stronger. There is a spirituality to sports, so to speak, and that is what we want to uncover and discover as we converse with those to whom sports has been an identifying journey. We hope you join us for more Grit Online as we explore the triumphs and the depths, the passions and the pains, and the incredible places of the spirit that sports can take us to.